Howdy, everybody. So right now, everyone's a little bit of a buzz about the new features being released in Vellum. And so I kind of wanted to take a moment and talk about it from a graphic design standpoint, because I think some of these tools will help authors who are designing their own interiors, their own images. But also for those of you that are using graphic designers, hopefully this will help you build a better relationship by being able to provide your designer with the things that you need to get the best work out of them. So the beginning of the conversation, we need to talk about how images work in books. Images in print, easy peasy. You put an image and there it is, no problem. However, when we get into eBooks, that's where things get a little bit more complicated, because we go from fixed layouts, print, and now we're going into variable layouts or non-fixed layouts. And these are uh, reflowable. And they're in KDP, they refer to them as flowable interiors. And what that means is your user on the other side of this can increase the font or make the type bigger. And what that'll do is it'll reflow the entire book so that all the type is bigger, and then the images move accordingly. This starts to create a problem when we're trying to get images fixed versus images to go where we want them in type. And there are solutions to this. Unfortunately, when you're going with a print on demand, such as KDP or Ingram, or even BookVault to that matter, images each have their own set of rules. So let's just try and always make sure that we're aware of what rules are going on. And for the sake of this argument, I'm going to be talking about KDP's eBooks, and I'm going to be talking about KDP print, and then I'm talk about BookVault's print as well. So yeah, that's really what you need to know about images, just flowable versus not flowable. Okay, so let's talk about Vellum's uses of images. And let's actually look at Vellum for a second. So if I pull up my Vellum right now, I have done the different types of images that can be included. And what I want you to understand is right now we are looking at flowable type. And so as we are looking in a Kindle Fire, if I add a chunk of text here, it's going to reflow, and it will keep reflowing it as necessary. So if someone makes this text bigger or smaller, something like a scene break is going to move in line with that. That's how it reflows it. So we'll see this in other places, such as an image. So there are some good uses of putting images in your book, especially when you get into things like nonfiction. Nonfiction has tons of images. So what we need to be aware of is the size and how it's going to reflow. So this is something that we have to be cognizant of. And for those of you who love a book that always looks a particular way, you kind of have to relinquish a little bit of control. And let me show you what I mean by that. So we're still there, but now we have this huge gap. And if I go to the next page, you can see it's on the top. So that becomes a problem. And if we want to go with a bigger image, so let's just do a full-size image. On this particular page, let's start a new paragraph so I can flow it onto the second page. If we come over here, this image is pretty big. Not a problem. But if we start adding in some text, what's going to happen is as it reaches the bottom, it's going to leave big gaps. This is going to show up in your ebook. There is no way around this. There is no fix for this. It will always bump it to the next page. The best that you could hope for is making the image smaller. And honestly, I'm here to tell you it's not worth it. The reason for this is because your reader might have this text where we see it right now. It's fairly large text, or for my eyes, readable text. But when I go into an ebook, I always turn the font size up much, much bigger. It just helps me read, basically. And so wherever these images are meant to go, they can get bumped all over the place. So we just need to be aware of that. But then we also have things that are fixed images, images that will stay in the same place on each page. And Vellum now has 3 of them. The one we've had for a long time are image headers. So let me just throw a apparently I lost all my okay. We actually ran into the problem. So right now, I am viewing this book as an ebook, and you will notice that headers, backgrounds, and borders do not show. They cannot be shown in an ebook. There are many reasons why, but ultimately it boils back to that fixed and flow layout. Because the way a EPUB is designed, it doesn't have the ability to permanently fix something on a page because the user can increase or decrease the font size, which would mean things would need to reflow. We can't do it. But now if we flip over into the print, we have our header image, we have a background image, and we have the border. So this is where the big difference comes in. So for those of you who are wondering, will this affect my ebooks? Honestly, the only 2 that really affects your ebook are, or 3, I'm sorry, are going to be scene breaks or single images. And I'm sorry, it is actually 2. Because verifying that I'm correct, sometimes I get things wrong. So right now, the only thing that will appear in an ebook is going to be a scene break or a single image. Now, something else that we need to consider when it comes to creating the ebook version is the price. And I know authors want to get the price as low as absolutely possible. Well, there's some good news. For those of you who are putting in scene breaks, it does not matter how many times you drop a scene break in there. Let's add a couple scene breaks. Why not? Ornamental break. I want another ornamental break. We're just going to throw them everywhere. What is happening right now? Let's go back and look at my lovely ornamental breaks all over the place. What is currently happening is it looks like there are 3 images here. There are not. There is 1 image and it is being referenced 3 times. So even though you have a scene break in your book, it is 1 image. Now, if you are putting in manual breaks, something like this, let's bring this back. Let's make it smaller so we can actually see it. If we bring this back, and if you're using a single image like this as a scene break, every image will be counted separately. And for those of you concerned about your delivery megabyte, this is going to impact it. Scene break, unless this is a massive, ornate, complicated image, it's going to hardly affect anything. I wouldn't even worry about it. However, if you're using designer scene breaks where you're inserting maybe a different scene break for different point of views or whatnot, that can start to add up. Now, if you maybe are putting character art at the beginning of each of your books or at the beginning of your chapters, let's just get a little crazy here and say that at the beginning of every chapter, you are inserting the character image. What will happen is it's going to assume that this is a different image over and over again. Now, what I am not entirely sure of is the new feature in Vellum allows you to reference, if we get over here, it allows you to reference a name. I am not 100% sure if it is condensing. So if you use the same image multiple times, if it's going in as 1 image or multiple images. So this is something you're going to want to double check when you do your outputs. Fair. All right. So when you are designing in Vellum, the nice thing is just to keep remembering that you can set up, and you'll see my table of contents here with this little itty bitty icon. That is for an ebook only. I can set different chapters if I wanted to make this a ebook only. I can turn it into an ebook only. It gets a little bit more complicated at that, but it can be done. So just be aware if you want to have 2 separate versions. But honestly, when I'm designing book interiors for folks, I rarely do it. because it instantly knows remove image, and then in the print version, insert image. So I don't need to have multiple files. Let's just be honest, file management is crazy enough as it is. I don't need more of it. Now, because of the new features that we're getting in Vellum, I just want to have a quick conversation about what does this mean. Now, I am not saying don't go hog wild with your special editions. Have fun, be creative, give your readers exactly what they've been craving. But there are going to be some limitations. I reached out to BookVault earlier today and I found out that they currently do not print on black pages, nor do they have black pages coated in ink. That is very important. That means if you want to do special editions that have super dark pages, you are most likely going to have to go find a specific printer that allows them. I'm currently researching printers that do that, but as of right now, I haven't come up with any that seems to be the norm. I would actually suggest talk to your local printer. You'll get the best deal and it'll decrease on the shipping rates. Now, when we are talking about these massive images, so let's imagine if right now I had this image, and you can see the text is already difficult to read here, but if I reversed it out white, it's going to be just as equally hard to see. Now, we are seeing more and more special editions that have black inserted pages. I'm suspecting that many of these are either tip-ins or through specialty presses. So just be aware, as of right now, neither KDP nor Ingram nor BookVault will offer this ability. What I am waiting to hear back on is how dark can we go on a page with ink before it kind of sets their alarms off and says, we need to reformat this. Because in theory, yes, I could make this entire page black. And just imagine if this image was solid black across the whole page. I could, in theory, do it. However, there's going to be a lot of quality concerns about this, and that's kind of what I want to focus on. The amount of ink that is going on a page will impact the quality. There's really no way around it. Now, from my experience from the books that I personally have had printed under my own name, I have found that BookVault has the better ink management. KDP is kind of you get what you get, and I find it a lot harder to control, nor can I talk to someone at KDP and say, hey, this is what I'm trying to do with this print. Can you do something special to it? BookVault is open to a conversation at least. So when we're thinking about those black pages, there's two ways of doing it. It could either be an actual black page with white ink on it, which has become readily available at specialty presses, or it's going to be a white page coated in black ink. We see this in really nifty design books, but we don't see it in mass consumer, and I want to show you why. This is one of the big concerns that I have about trying to pull something off like that. And it's not necessarily even for black. I would have this concern with any image. So let's just kind of look at this right here. This is a nice layout. It's what you would expect in a page if you had solid black. But what I want to show you is what happens. This would be the assumption that the page is black and that this is white ink. Now, if we go and look at this page, when you put black ink on a page and leave gaps for letters, this is known as knockout type. Knockout type is very, very delicately handled. And if I was running a very special book and I was working for, let's say, IBM or some other, people who are paying the big, big bucks for a book, I would personally go in and I would oversee this process. It would be super delicate. And let me show you why. If we look at the letters, this would be our best case scenario. But because we are working with people like KDP or even BookVault, and I'm not even knocking them, it's just a complicated process. Watch what happens to the letters. Ink is liquid, and we are putting liquid on pages. And if we do black, it's a lot of liquid. And that liquid will fill the gaps. And ultimately, what we are going to have is something like this. Now, again, if we could quality control, be a very different story. Unfortunately, we can't. I talked to BookVault because I was curious if they would handle this. As of right now, they do not. But you can see the difference between legible type versus, we're getting into kind of danger territory. And this is because of the print on demand process and the type of printers they use. And realistically, I don't know how to say it without taking digs at people, but KDP printers, we've all seen, they are not exactly quality forefront. So this would be my major concern. And this doesn't necessarily even revolve around black. This revolves around other pages, other colors as well. But let's go back and look at it this way. On this particular page, it is being printed on white, as I'm seeing right now, which is not accurate because my books are cream. This image gets printed and then it goes through a second time and the type gets printed on top of it. Now, the trees are one set of ink, and then I'm putting another liquid on top of it. If the process hasn't dried out the paper, the black will bleed out instead of in. So we still have a problem with the ink consumption. Now, again, what I've done with BookVault has shown me that this process, especially this is one of my book images, works fine. I would be a little bit hesitant when we get into these darker areas. So that would be a little bit of my concern. Now, on my particular book, it is only full color on one page. And then after that, I drop the opacity down so it's a lot more see-through. I want to make sure my readers can read more so than the aesthetic. Now, the other problems that we have when it comes to this idea of maximizing ink on page, we have quality. And please remember, white pages are more resistant to ink, which means you might get a more crisp look. But most of us are using cream paper, and cream paper is more absorbative. And so we're going to get mixed results. I personally don't like doing something if every book doesn't look the same, and we already have problems with KDP. So this might not be a KDP process. This might be BookVault or a specialty printer process. Now, the other thing that we have to be careful of is the amount of ink that we are putting on there. At some point, this is going to become problematic, and I don't know when or how it's going to happen, but it does make me a little bit nervous. Essentially, what we are doing is we are dropping an uncanny amount of ink on here. Now, I don't sell tens of thousands of books daily, weekly, monthly even. So for me, it's not going to be a big hit. But if someone starts doing this, if a lot of indies start doing this and start dropping that ink, I'm betting at some point places like KDP or BookVault are going to have ink restrictions, and it's just going to be a volume coded. And that's typically shown in a percentage number. If you go to a professional printer, they'll say the ink volume is 80% per page. And so I have a sneaking suspicion that when it goes through their automation processes, it's going to start checking for that stuff. Maybe not now, but be careful down the road. So if you're using this process, just make sure you put maybe every 3 or 6 months to go in and double check that something hasn't changed, specifically the cost. And then lastly, I am going to say cream versus white paper. The majority of us, I feel, and don't quote me on this, are using cream paper. Most of my clients are using cream paper. And so what I would be concerned with is, well, this image that's on the screen right now looks beautiful. It does not look like this when it comes in on cream paper. It is much more muted and it's much more cream. So my beautiful green trees are very fall colors, which works for my book. It was a happy accident, and it's something that I'm going to have to be cognizant of moving down the road. My last concern, and this is really just because my background is environmental design, the amount of ink that we're putting on there are environmentally sound processes that can be done on printers, such as like acquiescing and using water-based inks. However, we don't know what KDP is doing, and I am here to say if their concern is the lowest possible cost, that means they're using petroleum-based inks, which means the more ink on a page, the more petroleum being used, and you can see where this is going. So just kind of keep that in mind. If environmental concerns are at your forefront, I'm not saying don't use it, just pick your moments, and that way you can kind of balance your environmental concerns versus giving your readers something super pretty. I have one more thing for you, and this is how to make your designer happy. This is going to be, if we are looking right now at BookVault, at Vellum, they have done something awesome, and this makes graphic designers super happy. We don't like designing in a vacuum, and things become very, if you tell us that we get a 5.5 by 8 book, we are going to design for a 5.5, 8 book. And then if you come back partway through the process and say, oh, I'm sorry, I got it wrong, it's 6 by 9, I can tell you right now that those aspect ratios don't line up, and every graphic designer has to make a decision. Are we going to put that charge on you, or are we going to eat it and be bitter? So let's try and avoid that. The great thing about Vellum is the same reason why I support BookVault so much. BookVault makes getting the templates incredibly easy. Vellum, my hat's off to you. You are making graphic designers everywhere super happy. So if you come in right now and if you add a heading background or a heading background, page background, or a page border, it will create these little images and tabs up here. And if you come down, not only will it tell you the size, and sure, you could relate that to your designer and we'll be super appreciative of it, but you can click this button right here and create a template. Ooh, Vellum, you just made graphic designers super happy. So this is just another way that you can make sure that you get bumped to the front of graphic designer queues. And let me just show you quickly what they look like. They are nothing special. This is for doing heading images, which the only thing that is slightly a problem here is they do not, and hopefully in future updates, they will do this, but I, as of right now, do not know where the chapter heading begins. It'll change a little bit if you have like a wraparound chapter heading versus just the number 1. It'll be somewhere in this area, but if you want a background that plays with the letters, maybe a circle going around them to make it extra spiffy, you're going to need to measure those out. It's super easy. Ask your graphic designer. They're going to ask you for a PDF export of your book so they can import it and line things up. Still super easy. Then if we go over onto these two, they're identical templates because essentially they're looking for the same thing. But the borders, you can see the borders, you can see the text area. And if you saw on the Vellum image, let's just go back to it. When we're looking at borders, it cuts out the text area. So graphic designers now know that we can go up to this line and not over it and still get a nifty looking, maybe a filigree around the outside of your book. Now, when it comes to your 2-page image, it's basically just 2 full pages. It's super easy. But the nice thing about this means that now when we're doing it, we are giving you the correct file sizes. We are giving you the correct sized files. So that way you don't have these super bloated images and your Vellum isn't going to suddenly explode because you're trying to pump too much information into it. So what I would suggest doing personally is just label these something super obvious for what you're looking for and then send them right along to your graphic designer. We love a good template. So this is making our jobs easier as of right now. And if anyone is interested to continue making your designer happy, you can always get your KDP template and send it along to your designer. You can get Ingram templates, send them along to your designer. You can get BookVault and Barnes & Noble templates, send them along to your designer. That way there is less confusion and less chance your designer will accidentally put in the wrong page number. So if you're supplying them, it's one of those things that make us super happy, and we work faster for the clients that make us the happiest. So that is everything. So be excited about Vellum. Just be aware of how it works. Just make sure you're taking into consideration ink volumes and how it might affect the pages and the quality of the pages. And just be aware of the existing quality issues that already happened with KDP. They will continue happening with this process as well. Possibly get worse, but just be aware of that. All right. So thank you. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments. I am always more than happy to explain anything I possibly can, but hopefully this gives you a good idea of how Vellum works with images, how it works in different printers as well. All right. Take care.